We have the different partners with us. Ladies and gentlemen, and allow me to say all protocol observed. It's exciting this morning to be together, and allow me to appreciate you for putting everything aside and heeding to the call that we put forward to you to come and be part of this meeting. That is basically about discussing issues of access to justice for the child survivors of violence and abuse.
So very interesting meeting that we had today, a very insightful engagement that we have had between the government of Lesotho as well as the government of Swaziland, looking at issues of access to justice for children. So what was being discussed, basically, we had the representatives from the Children's Department that were just giving an overview in terms of the policy and legal landscape in both Lesotho and Eswatini. We then had the Department of Social Welfare, which was providing an overview in terms of their own role when it comes to providing services to children that have experienced any form of violence. From there, we had the police coming in from both Eswatini and Lesotho, who were talking to us about the special initiatives that pertain to dealing with the issues of sexual violence and domestic violence and their specific role on that. We then moved on and we had a session where we were looking at the importance of psychosocial support and what needs to be done in the different countries to address that issue. I'm sure you know that we've had COVID-19, and I'm sure in both countries we've seen a spike in terms of the levels of violence against children, be it sexual, physical, emotional, because of all of the stress and families being confined together.
One thing that I've seen is that I could see that there are a lot of similarities. For instance, looking at the interventions and the programs that are meant to address the needs of children, address violence against children, the ones that are meant to enhance justice for children, services in both Eswatini and Lesotho, you could see that they're more or less the same, most of the programs. But one thing that I liked about Eswatini, the fact that the Department of Social Welfare is housed under the Prime Minister's office. I think it is strategically placed, because looking at the caliber of that office, it is the office where a lot of advocacy issues that are meant to address the policy gaps and the vulnerability factors in different sectors that impact negatively on the lives of children, we could see that they can be addressed easily because of the nature or the caliber of the office. So that's one thing that I really liked. Besides that, I could see that some of the challenges are more or less the same. For instance, I was listening to the presentation by the Child and Gender Protection Unit Senior Inspector from our side and the one from Eswatini. You could see that the problem of limited resources, it is still the challenge in both Lesotho and Eswatini. I remember while they were talking about limited resources like the unavailability of vehicles. For me, like in Lesotho, we know very well that one of the set government standards in the CGPU is to make sure that each and every CGPU office has its own vehicle. And you could see that even in Eswatini, because we use same laws. You know, in Eswatini they have the Children's Protection and Welfare Act, and even in Lesotho we have same law, and you could see that is a legal framework that is trying to provide guidance on how best should we address issues of child protection in those areas. But I have realized that very true, the challenges are more or less the same.
Let me first say we are really humbled by the support of World Vision Lesotho and Eswatini. On my side, what is my take home mostly is seeing the dedication of Eswatini when it comes to dealing with issues of victims and survivors of crime and violence against children and sexual exploitations and abuse. I'm really impressed by seeing the one-stop centers and where the safe space for the victims are able to get the holistic interventions from the psychologists, the social workers, and the nurses, the doctors in one center, and those being offered freely. For me, I think as Lesotho, that's an area of advocacy, and we have to make sure that it is implemented. Because often we normally say we really have to make sure that we support victims and survivors freely, as much as the offenders get some free legal services.
I found the trip more fruitful because we're able to observe where the multi-sectoral approach is being implemented to ensure there is an effective prosecution and investigation of cases regarding to gender-based violence. And I think I have got something to take at home, because in our context we don't have police officers in the one-stop center whereby they work 24-hour clock to ensure that there is that constant effectiveness of giving access to children or victims of gender-based violence. So I think that does not need money. You just need police officers who will be designated into that one-stop shop if it is implemented in our country, and that I think would be one of the key issues to implement at home, because here in Eswatini we still have a same context like in Lesotho. They've got the chieftainship authority at local level. They've got all political setup like the ones we have in Lesotho. So I think we have got a very fruitful learning experience here in Eswatini.
Because even today I was so impressed with what we have seen. We visited different courts, even the prosecution office, and to me I've seen that maybe our country is still behind, because first of all, when talking about our laws, we have CPWA, which is Children's Protection and Welfare Act, and Sexual Offences Act, and we are using at Children's Court, we are using those laws. And CPWA states that a child is somebody below the age of 18, while sexual offenses says a child is somebody below the age of 15. It means when a person is sexually abused and is below the age of 16, her case is tried in the main court, which is the magistrate court. She's not afforded the privacy she deserves. And I was so impressed with Eswatini laws, because they now have Sexual Offences Act with Domestic Violence Act combined together. And it says a child is somebody below the age of 18. That means they are treated equally. In our system, it's unfortunate because our cases take too long to proceed. And this means we are re-victimizing the child, because our law, it's criminally, it's one-sided, meaning that it takes care of accused persons as opposed to victims, because they have so many rights. For example, he would he's afforded his right to legal representation. And he can change lawyers as many times as he can. In the meantime, what do we do to the child? Waiting for the case to proceed, and by the time we proceed, everything's gone.
Each district has a magistrate court, and in all those magistrate courts, they can sit as a children's court. That definitely shows that we do not have a child-friendly courts. In Maseru, we are a little bit better. We are housed outside the main magistrate court, but it's a park home. It is a park home that was given to us by some NGO. It is the only court that is outside the magistrate court. And on a scale of 0 to 100, as I scale its child friendliness, I would give us 45%. I would say 45 because, one, nobody is trained to be a child magistrate. We are all trained at the National University of Lesotho or elsewhere. And you just pick your ways as you go in the children's court.